So Wizards, Trae Young, they signed him to a $212 million deal. So people have described that deal as one of the biggest risks ever taken by a franchise that has really not been relevant for a few years. Hello, good evening. This is Taiwan Ojobi, your host on London as Maple Sports. We'd like to bring you unfiltered opinions, sharp analysis, and some big love for Canadian hoops and ice. I'm going to be diving into some of the moves that have happened within the world of the NBA. I've not had the opportunity of catching up on some of the moves, but I'm just going to be giving my view and what I call my own 2 cents on some of those moves that have happened. Some of them are heavy moves. Some I grade them A, some are A minus, some are B, and some are D, based on the moves that have happened, but they've been power moves happening on the Western Conference and also on the Eastern Conference. But the major determinant is most of these teams are afraid of going above the second apron. Some of them are good above the luxury tax, first apron, but they don't want to go above the second apron. And that has also, kind of motivated how they're able to keep their core players together. But I'm going to be diving into all of it now. Now, teams are making seismic moves. The identity change is major, especially with teams in the Eastern Conference. And, a good number of trades I'll be talking about today, I just put them in my analysis. The Miami Heat was able to trade for Giannis Antetokounmpo. That was a very good move. It's a statement move coming from the Eastern Conference. The Raptors have gone back for Kawhi Leonard. A lot of us can remember how Kawhi Leonard was very successful with the Raptors in 2019 and how he helped them deliver a championship to their city, and also once he won the Finals MVP. That was a milestone because that was the first ever championship won by the Toronto Raptors, and they still remember and they still have a good relationship with him. And also because Kawhi had made up his mind that he was going to retire in Toronto, and he still wants like a long-term deal. He still probably wants at least a minimum 3 years deal, something that can guarantee him getting good salary for another 3 years. The LA Clippers are tired and they're most likely not going to give him that deal. The pressure of media has already gotten to the Clippers team, and they are not thinking of renewing Kawhi Leonard. So right now, the way it's going, he has negotiated with them and it looks like they're going to be able to land him in a position that he really wants. And he wants to go back to Toronto, and Toronto is willing to take him back. And last season was a good season for him, even though the season was ended in, without them even going into the postseason. But at least they played in the play-in, but they couldn't just get out of the play-in. But that being said, the Kawhi still had one of his best records all throughout the last 3 to 4 years. And the Timberwolves also got better. They were able to get LaMelo Ball to come and work with Anthony Edwards in the backcourt. So it looks like there's going to be a bit of chemistry going to go on with Anthony Edwards and LaMelo Ball, trying to see how they can combine together. LaMelo Ball will most likely take the position of point guard, while Anthony Edwards will most likely be a shooting guard, because LaMelo Ball will take a bit of the pressure off him and he will be able to concentrate more on shooting and take a lot of the pressure of handling the ball and distributing and give it to LaMelo. So hopefully there's going to be some chemistry going on with Timberwolves. The Lakers are losing LeBron James, and that's the news that is all over. It's not new again. LeBron James have asked them to move on with their plans without him, that he'll be joining another team. And it's quite clear because everybody knows that LeBron James still wants to try and see if he can win one more championship. So he probably wants to be able to join a team that can go in and compete. And we know that as presently constructed, the Lakers team cannot win anything the way they are. Even though they went ahead and they got a Kessler from Utah, but I don't think they can win with Kessler. They still have to do a lot more to be able to put themselves in a position to win. So Lakers losing LeBron is a big one, but it is what it is. But a lot of people feel that they are overpaying for Walker Kessler. But I feel that they also need a guy, a top guard like him, very tall, that can support Luka Doncic and put him in a better position to win. The Hornets traded LaMelo and they are winning on asset play. They also traded one of their key pieces to the Phoenix Suns, which I'll also get back into in this analysis. The 76ers were able to exchange Paul George for Jaylen Brown. That is still the trade that everybody is talking about because that trade was announced 2 days ago. Jaylen Brown, his name had come up in trade talks. We can also remember that 2 years ago they tried to get Kevin Durant, and Jaylen Brown was the name they put up because they were willing to trade him. I also feel within me, I'm not sure because I don't really know what's going on, but it looks like a lot of people in the organization don't really like him because I tried to go back to when Ime Udoka was the coach and he had just taken them to the finals and he has lost against a Golden State. Now, because of some kind of irregularities that did not align with the principles of the Celtics organization, which was inappropriate sexual relationship with a member of staff, it now became a situation whereby even though they knew that he had just gotten to the final a year before, they couldn't cover it up. They just had to let him go. And that's why today, Joe Mazzulla, who was the assistant coach, took that same team to the final and won with them. And it was more like all the efforts that Ime Udoka had put together. Joe Mazzulla just took it from there and ended up, enjoying some of the efforts and the team he has put together. But life moves on. That's how life is generally. Udoka is doing so well with the Rockets now, and now the Rockets team have become very relevant, and hopefully is able to push them to a championship. Next season. But next season is going to be a tough one. So that being said, a lot of teams are making some kind of what I call disciplined incremental moves. Some have really improved, some have not. And I did some ratings based on all the teams and Western Conference, Eastern Conference. Now there are some teams that have set up themselves so that they will avoid panic. Some of them have improved their depth. Some have made some cap savvy moves. And a good example is the Spurs are A minus on their moves. And this is linked to them signing Champagne. The Thunder, Oklahoma Thunder is a B. The Chicago Bulls are a B, Warriors are a B minus, Rockets are just a B. And that's also because, they've also made sure that they didn't lose some players. Now, there are some teams that are stuck, they are stagnant, and they're just making some questionable decisions. They are not sure yet. Celtics are a D plus, Timberwolves are a D plus, Suns are a D, Blazers are a D, and Wizards are also a D in this category. Now, if you look at the strategic teams going across the league, there's a massive star movement. A lot of the stars in this offseason have moved, starting from Giannis Antetokounmpo. Now, if you see how the offseason has moved, some of these stars have also been involved in choosing where they wanted to go, which has never really happened in a long time, where you have a lot of stars moving in the offseason, but they still have a choice of where they wanted to go in those movements. Giannis was moved to the Miami Heat and is very happy about the move. So it looks like he had known about the move. They've already discussed it with him before it was even announced, and people like us were able to pick it up and formally announce it. Kawhi will be moving back to the Raptors, coming back to Canada. That's good because it's also giving us an opportunity to watch him play in Toronto, maybe a couple of times when one travels to Toronto. Jaylen Brown moving to the 76ers is still the most is still the most misunderstood move because it's more like you made another team within your conference stronger. And that's how the Jaylen Brown trade has really gone because everybody's talking about the trade for the last 3 days. And it looks like it's a big surprise. Even the league does not understand what was driving that trade. I feel there's been some line that has been crossed because this is a guy that has just taken you guys, just 2 years removed from winning a finals MVP. And last year he took them. So I feel that they would have given him another chance or wait till like July, August so that you can get more assets for him. LaMelo Ball moving to Timberwolves, just like I said earlier, is a very interesting move. I feel they're probably just trying to firm up their guard position so that they can bring in a player that's versatile that can play shooting guard and point guard position. That's what they have. And they still have Anthony Edwards, who is a top guard in the league and a very good shooter as well. When it comes to 3-point shooting, he was top 5 in the league last year. Kessler moving to the Lakers. This is an historic restricted free agency sign and trade that happened. And Walker Kessler is in quotes, is supposed to be the center that should be able to support Doncic in helping him with those lob threats and helping him, link up play, especially when you are doing your two-man game. We're hoping that they're able to build chemistry during the offseason and they can come together and maybe they can be a finals run once again. And for me, this kind of reflects that stars are increasing that position of dictating where their destinations will be. And that's a very good one for the league. It means that there are better relationships happening between a franchise and the player is dictating where they want to go. Now, teams are willing to overpay to keep their franchise players happy. That's exactly what's happening these days. Now, the apron rules, which is the first and second apron, is forcing teams to choose one star and maybe one depth or 2 stars as well, and no flexibility. So it now depends on how flexible they want to be. Just like the New York Knicks I just talked about, they don't want to go above the second apron for any reason. And for them, it's not worth it because they have just won a championship with their core team. Now, the apron era is changing team behavior, and I'm seeing it happen a lot, and that's why it must be talked about. The Oklahoma Thunder team is directly determined to be on their $554 million roster. The only one is the Chicago Bulls. They are just comfortable. They didn't really make many moves. They only went for Norman Powell, and that's the only guy they bought. They sacked their coach, and they brought in a new coach, trying to see how things can change for them. But I feel those are still middle pack moves. They didn't make any heavy moves at all. Now, if you look at the best of season movements, teams that move from A to A minus. If you look at the grade, the boldest philosophical shift for me is trading LaMelo Ball, and they were able to get Nas Reed, Kobe White, and multiple 2033 first round picks. That's a very, very good one. The Hornets, they are very strategic in this. Letting LaMelo Ball go, they got Nas Reed, a very good defender. They got Kobe White, multiple 2033 first round picks. That's a very good one, which means that they are positioning themselves for the future. The 76ers are very good. They got Jaylen Brown. They signed Anthony Simons from the same Celtics team. They got Dean Wade from the Cavs, and they got some kind of elite retooling. For me, the 76ers want to win now. The moment they get everybody healthy, for me, they just moved on from Paul George's contract. Paul George for them has been more trouble than even being a solid player. So they just moved on from Paul George. And the 76ers team that wants to offload Paul George. So if you look at it generally, two teams trying to make each other happy, and that was how they went both ways. But the problem now is Paul George is 35, going to be 36, and Jaylen Brown is just 30. So there's a 5-year gap. So it looks like the 76ers won the trade, kind of. So it's almost a tough one for them, and I feel that except if Paul George plays his life out and is outstanding for them, it looks like the 76ers won this trade. And the Spurs have stayed patient. They only added Tobias Harris from Detroit. Detroit couldn't keep him, and they retained Champagny, and they drafted Jaden Quinton. So it's good that they are more like an average movement. They didn't have to take too many decisions to affect their team. The Utah Jazz was able to get some picks by selling Walker Kessler into a 4 first-round asset. You understand? And some kind of trade exception as well. They drafted Darren Peterson as well in the draft class that we just witnessed a few days ago as well. Now, the worst off-season that has happened is the Celtics selling Jaylen Brown, and shockingly, they didn't get good draft capital coming back for them. So they need to speculate widely to justify this kind of move, because even at the time when the Celtics gave up Ime Udoka, people were thinking, why do you just give up a coach that's just taking you to the final? And the next year, with the assistant coach, who now became the full-time coach, they went ahead and they won it. So the institution can start to believe in themselves, because it's a wild belief giving up a Jaylen Brown and still believe that your team is good enough with a Paul George who is not necessarily going to guarantee you the number of games that Jaylen Brown will give you. Jaylen Brown hardly goes on injury. He plays almost all the games all throughout the season. He just has 2 years removed from being a finals MVP. And you are believing that Paul George will be able to replicate that. It is going to be, I don't know how you can make it make sense. But hopefully, I feel they may be able to push some other trades, get some other pieces around. Because what just happens is they just offloaded Jaylen Brown's contract to the 76ers, and 76ers moved Paul George's contract to the Celtics. Hopefully, they're able to get it done and, move on from all this. The Timberwolves added LaMelo Ball. Some people consider LaMelo Ball as high risk because he's not so consistent. He's an high volume shooter. He's more of a shooting guard. He shoots a lot. So it means that if you are shooting too much and you miss a lot. So he may be shooting, for example, now, even a good day, he can shoot maybe 23 shots and he will make 7. So he'll be 7 of 23. 7 is still good, but the amount of shots you have taken to be able to make 7 is too much. So if you're looking at efficiency, his counterpart with his new colleague, Anthony Edwards, is even shooting much better than that. So except maybe they're also able to tame him, let him reduce his 3-point attempt percentage. Let there be some kind of low durability going on. Understand? Let it adjust a bit. Because if you look at it, the cost, for example, what it costs Timberwolves, they had to give up Nas Reed. You understand? Some picks and some swaps just to get LaMelo Ball. But he's still young enough, so you can still tame him and get the best out of him. Miles Bridges was traded to the Phoenix Suns. Phoenix Suns are still a bit quiet in this offseason. I still don't know what they're trying to achieve. But Miles Bridges should be able to help them. And Miles Bridges is also part of the Hornets project of, offloading some of those guys so that they can get some draft capital. The Blazers were able to get Ja Morant, and that's a big gamble. There's no roster sense for me yet because Ja Morant is still your point guard. You have Scoot Anderson. You still have Damian Lillard. You have probably 4 point guards on that team, including Damian Lillard, who you just brought back from Milwaukee. So you have all these guys, including a Ja Morant, and I still don't know how it's going to work because Ja Morant is going to start because of the kind of money he's earning. Damian Lillard is going to start. Scoot Anderson is still your rookie, who is your backup guard. And they still have one more guard, I can't remember his name, but they also have a Holiday. They still have Holiday with them, who is also a guard as well. So you have four major guards that would most likely be needed to utilize themselves on high percentages. And I still don't know what they're trying to do. I just feel that maybe they're trying to position themselves within the guard position. You need to be able to, do that even on your wings because you need wing defenders that are playing at that top level to also give you a chance to win. So Wizards, Trae Young, they signed him to a $212 million deal. So people have described that deal as one of the biggest risks ever taken by a franchise that has really not been relevant for a few years. $212 million for a guy that is not so tall. But with what they've seen, with a Jalen Brunson taking his team to the finals and is almost the same height with Trae Young, they are feeling that, okay, a young guard should still be able to take a team to the promised land in the NBA of today. So maybe they were motivated by that, and that's why they gave him the deal. The most interesting single moves so far for me, Giannis to Miami, that was massive overpay because some people are still looking at it as a questionable fit because even Miami still needs to get some pieces around him to put him in position to succeed. But it was a good move because it has also made Miami a powerhouse. And Miami definitely does not want to lose him to another contestant, even though last year they didn't really make a lot of noise and they didn't have talent, but they gave up a couple of good players for him. Kawhi is back in Toronto, high cost, but it raises their ceiling dramatically. People now begin to look at Toronto and they are involved in the mix. And maybe Kawhi can have the opportunity to play, because that's the last place Kawhi won a championship. So going back there can give him some good memories and he goes back and maybe start playing well at very high level without injuries. But remember, it was a different coach he played under at that time. Walker Kessler going to the Lakers as a restricted free agent, sign and trade. That was a good one because they paid the superstar price for him as a role player. LaMelo Ball moving to Minnesota, good moves. High variance. I feel that this is a move that unlocks Anthony Edwards to implode and make the franchise very relevant this year. I see something good going away. So if you look at the macro takeaways I looked at from my analysis, I can tell you that the East has gotten significantly stronger because the Raptors, 76ers, and Heat have gotten superstars and they are better off. The West are going through what I call more volatility. The Lakers, Wolves, and Spurs are the major ones that took major changes. Draft capital is now the league's most valuable currency because you need to be able to keep draft capital for the future to keep your franchise very relevant. Now, teams are willing to trade stars early rather than lose them for nothing. That's what we are seeing now. Look at what happened to Ja Morant. They didn't want to lose him for nothing, so he was traded to the Portland Trail Blazers. Now, the apron era is also forcing smarter moves. A lot of teams don't want to go above the second apron, so it's also determining what kind of star they can go for and how flexible the team can remain. So that being said, I was able to do a top-level summary of what this offseason really looks like right now with the trades that have happened and the identity-changing moves. Thank you very much for staying with us. This is Taiwo, once again, your host. Have a wonderful day ahead and enjoy.